4 days after the attack on Pearl Harbor, Adolf Hitler stood up at the Reichstag and vowed, "We will always strike first. We will always deal the first blow." If Japan could strike Hawaii, Hitler wanted to hit New York. At 2:30 p.m. on February 9th, a fire broke out on the SS Normandie, a luxury ocean liner docked at New York Harbor, injuring 191 people. The ship capsized, and Nazi sabotage was suspected. However, after the burning of the SS Normandie, there were no more major fires along the New York waterfront. For 3 years, hundreds of Allied ships would use the harbor safely. It was as if a deal had been struck. A deal with the illicit underworld of the Big Apple to ensure the safety of the city they puppeteered from the shadows. Welcome to our video on the Mafia's role in helping the Allied war effort in World War II. This video is brought to you by the Grand Mafia. Download the game for free and support our channel by using the link in the description. If you controlled a mafia, would you help the very governments that were usually trying to bring you down? Maybe the reward is worth it. Make the decision for yourself with the sponsor of this video, the Grand Mafia, the legendary mobile game where you rise through the mafia ranks all the way to the top. How? By street fighting, robbing banks, developing cities, trading on the black market, collecting and racing luxury cars, building a loyal and powerful crew, and enjoying the mobile equivalent of GTA. It's that amazing, and it's all for free. Level up your mansion to level 9 and bring in your girlfriend to help you rob and relax, then reach level 17 to unlock T3 Associates for a 700% attack boost. From there, you'll be all good. And here's another tip. If you decide to play and join us in the game, use our redemption code TGMKings to get a limited turf skin and construction boosts worth $25, giving you an easy start. And if we get more codes, we'll link them in the faction chat. You should also recruit and level Killer Queen to get her 30% max construction boost, useful throughout the game. Then you'll be ready to bring our faction to the top. And on that note, it turns out various other YouTubers have their own factions. We can use the game's faction battle system to bring them down, with your help. So join our faction, KNG Kings and Generals, to participate. Check all this out using our link in the description and play this outrageously good mobile game for free right now. Like other Italian leaders, Benito Mussolini promised Sicilians much, but delivered little. By 1937, he boasted that he would make Sicily one of the most productive regions in the world, but the fascist regime did almost nothing to improve conditions, and never won wide-scale acceptance on the island. Initially, the Sicilian Mafia saw the fascists as instruments they could use to maintain their control over the island, and postured as Mussolini's most ardent supporters. But this would dramatically change after Mussolini visited Sicily in 1924. Realizing that the Sicilian Mafia was undermining his centralization policies, the Italian dictator initiated a campaign led by Cesare Mori, the prefect of Palermo, to destroy the Sicilian Mafia by taking their families hostage while torturing, imprisoning, and exiling their leaders. Many of the exiled mafioso wound up in America, and while they may have been cast out, they could still exert influence on Sicily through contact with their underground associates on the island. Meanwhile, incidents like the burning of the SS Normandie sent chills through Washington. The port of New York handled nearly half of all US foreign trade, and if the Nazis were able to sabotage it, it would be absolutely devastating to the American economy. US Navy intelligence sent hundreds of agents to investigate the waterfront for Axis sympathizers, but their efforts turned up dry as the dock workers and fishermen refused to talk. Interestingly, many people claimed to have sabotaged the SS Normandie, one being the mafia racketeer Anthony Anastasio, who did so to the end of making a deal with the US Navy intelligence to secure the release of a notorious mafia boss from prison, in return for ensuring no sabotage would occur again in New York Harbor. On March 7th, Captain Roscoe McFall of the US Naval Intelligence met with Frank Hogan, the district attorney, and Murray Gurfein, in charge of the district attorney's rackets bureau. These men outlined the problems facing naval intelligence, and Hogan brought up the idea of using the criminal underworld to help gather naval intelligence. This led Lieutenant Commander Charles Hafton to seek the aid of the notorious Joseph "Socks" Lanza. Lanza was a New York labor racketeer and a member of the Genovese crime family who controlled the Fulton Fish Market in Lower Manhattan. He got the nickname Socks from socking anyone who got in his way. Lanza and his associates began helping US intelligence by gathering information about the New York waterfront, helping to stop workers from speaking loosely about troop transports, identifying suspects aiding Axis agents, and acquired Fishermen's Union cards to sneak naval intelligence agents into the unions to root out any potential saboteurs in those workers' organizations. Yet Lanza was not only talking to naval intelligence, for he was also keeping his mafia overlords well informed of all his activities. One of these overlords was the mafia crime boss Lucky Luciano, previously New York's public enemy number one. Charles Lucky Luciano was considered the father of modern organized crime in the US, and the first official boss of the Genovese crime family. Presently he was sentenced to 30 to 50 years in prison, convicted for compulsory prostitution. Commander Hafenden noted while Lanza provided them with good information, he often had to get the okay from Charlie Lucky before taking any actions. Then, Lanza came to naval intelligence with a shocking proposition: to bring Lucky Luciano on board. In early 1942, the war in the Atlantic was going badly for the Allies. In the first 10 months, over 521 Allied ships were lost to Axis actions, and Hitler's U-boats were hunting prey close to the US eastern coast practically unhindered. The situation was dire, and US naval intelligence needed strong action. Lanza was the king of the fish market, but his limits as a fixer had become apparent. What they really needed was someone with greater authority in the underworld. Someone like Lucky Luciano. Luciano got his lawyer, Moses Polakov, to set up a meeting with Meyer Lansky and Frank Costello at his prison in Dannemora. In these meetings, Luciano told the men he could help the US Navy using his labor connections and promised them he would protect the docks from any sabotage. Over 20 known dealings went on between the US Naval Intelligence and Luciano between May 15th until August 21st of 1945. Deals were struck to first move Luciano to the comparatively more comfortable Great Meadow prison, then for a reduction of his sentence. Moreover, all of his dealings were to be a secret, as Luciano was an Italian citizen who would eventually be deported back to Italy, and he did not want to be killed on his return for breaking Omerta, the mafia code of silence, which forbade him from sharing secrets outside his organization. The partnership between Luciano and the US government proved to be fruitful, for Luciano made sure that no sabotages or Axis espionage occurred on the East Coast. No German U-boat would receive aid from the docks. Troop and supply transport information would be kept secret, and that there would be no Union strikes during the war, as naval intelligence agents would be snuck into the Unions and any Axis agents would be disappeared if caught. Luciano used his underworld network to amazing effect. In one instance, a major German initiative known as Operation Pastorius, which involved German agents landing on Long Island by submarine, was uncovered by the Mafia network. The end result of the Mafia collaboration was Allied convoys carrying on their job of supplying soldiers and supplies to Europe to fight the war without incident. By February of 1943, Luciano wanted to capitalize on his dealings and got the US Supreme Court to reach a secret agreement that if he continued to assist them and remained a model prisoner, he might receive executive clemency. As the Allies began to win major victories in North Africa, the next logical step was, as Sir Winston Churchill put it, to attack the soft underbelly of Europe, Italy. The decision to invade Sicily was made in Casablanca, Morocco, in January of 1943. Joseph Stalin was clamoring for a second front to be opened, but the other Allied powers argued that they needed more time to build up their forces. Moreover, the US Navy lacked good intelligence in the area, as they had not expected to be fighting in the Mediterranean, since traditionally this was the sphere of influence of the Royal Navy. As a result of the Casablanca Conference, the US Navy needed to gather the intelligence needed for a successful invasion of Sicily. The officers chosen for this task came from the 3rd Naval District, the same men who were working with Operation Underworld to secure the New York docks. Luciano helped them enlist numerous Italians of Sicilian birth to provide intelligence, maps, and photographs of terrain, harbours, and anything useful for the Allies to know before invading Sicily. They also provided contacts and informants among Sicilian natives, many from the Mafia, who might aid with the invasion and topple Mussolini. Luciano then came up with a new proposal. He wanted to enlist as a regular soldier with the invasion forces to work as a scout or liaison. Luciano thought his physical presence would guarantee Sicilian cooperation. This idea was struck down immediately. Naval intelligence was happy with the information Luciano provided, but did not want to attract attention onto themselves by releasing Public Enemy No. 1. Meanwhile, the US Joint Chiefs of Staff prepared a report on April 9th of 1943 titled Special Military Plan for Psychological Warfare in Sicily, a set plan to undermine Axis forces in Sicily. The plan called for using social connections between America and Sicily to organize an active resistance movement. This called for Sicilian Americans to infiltrate Sicily to gather information and recruit those willing to aid in the invasion, particularly those in the Mafia. They would be needed to smuggle arms and munitions and to organize guerrilla bands to harass the invaders. The plan called for arming friendly Mafia members and encouraging them to carry out sabotage against bridges, railroads, roads, and military installations. The Joint Chiefs of Staff in Washington approved the plan on April 15th of 1943, and it was passed over to General Dwight Eisenhower over in the North African Theater. The message was clear: the Mafia was to be deployed in the conquest of Sicily. On the night of July 9th, 1943, an armada of 2,500 ships and landing crafts, carrying 150,000 American-British-Canadian forces, landed on the beaches of the southeast corner of Sicily. Lieutenant General George Patton and the US 7th Army would march through the western part of Sicily, while General Sir Bernard Montgomery led the British-Canadian 8th Army to march up the eastern part of Sicily. The British and Canadian advance was measured in blood, but in contrast, the Americans quickly cut across the island's western half and seized its capital of Palermo with ease. Did the Sicilian Mafia aid make a difference for the Americans? While Luciano did not get his wish to grab a Tommy gun and join the invasion, his US naval intelligence counterpart, Anthony Maslow, did drop his desk job to hit the beaches of Sicily. In fact, many members of the New York Naval Intelligence Team, including Paul Alfieri, Joachim Titolo, and Ensign James Murray, were amongst the first waves to land on Sicily. They were armed with information gathered in New York from Luciano and his Mafia network, and as Maslow recounted, "It was of tremendous help following the landing, because we gained an insight into the customs and mores of these people, particularly Sicilians, the political ideology and its mechanics on lower echelons, the manner in which the ports were operated, the chains of command together with their material culture, which enabled us to carry out the findings and purposes of our mission." Countless Mafia members aided them, using the passwords Mafia or Lucky Luciano. One Mafia member, a man Luciano had saved from the electric chair in America and smuggled back to Sicily, aided their group in finding the Italian Naval Command HQ, which turned out to be hidden at a holiday villa. The local Mafia groups got gunmen together and helped attack the HQ, killing its German guards. In a safe in the HQ, US naval intelligence found countless valuable documents detailing important information on Axis forces within the Mediterranean, a tremendous prize. The Mafia helped the Americans use the local fishing fleet, locate minefields and booby traps along the coast and harbours, and incited mass desertion and surrender of Italian forces. The same thing could not be said for the experience of the British and Canadian 8th Army as it marched towards Catania, meeting strong resistance. A report from the Allied HQ in Algiers to the War Office in London on July 27th indicated that the enemy resistance in western Sicily had ceased, but that the British faced a slow and determined German rearguard action along the eastern coast. The Americans had entered the realm of the Mafia, whose control had always been strongest in the western and central regions of Sicily. A rather infamous legend about Mafia power was demonstrated in Villalba. On July 14th, American fighter planes dropped nylon bags into the town, which held small yellow flags bearing a black L on them. The L stood for Lucky Luciano, and it was a signal which was sent to Don Calogero Vizzini, the alleged head of the entire Mafia of Sicily. Don Calo quickly sent word to Giuseppe Genco Russo, the second most powerful Mafia member in the area. Using codes, they used the Mafia network to begin inciting desertions, rebellion, and aid for the incoming American forces. According to local legend, as the first American tanks entered Villalba, it is alleged one tank was waving a yellow flag with a black L and called out, "Call Don Calo Vizzini! Call Don Calo Vizzini!" It is alleged Don Calo handed over the yellow flag and jumped aboard the first tank and would help them liberate the area. It is said the day after Don Calo entered the tank, over in the heights around Monte Camerata overlooking the approach to Palermo, the Axis commander, Lieutenant Colonel Salemi, had 2/3 of his troops desert him. Some of the Italian soldiers claimed Mafia members approached them during the night, telling them the situation was hopeless, offering them civilian clothes to flee to their families. The Battle of Camerata was won without a single shot fired. General Patton would beat Montgomery to Messina by just 2 hours to end the campaign. After the conquest of Sicily, the Allied military government of occupied territories, AMGOT, took over the island. AMGOT faced enormous issues maintaining law and order. Fascist political leaders were removed from all posts of authority, leaving a political vacuum that attracted the Mafia to fill those slots. Mafia-backed Sicilian separatists began to fill political posts, such as the acting mayor of Palermo, Lucio Tasca, and the Duchess of Cesaro. It had not been the Allies' plan to put the Mafia back in power in Sicily, it was simply an oversight on their part, as the American relationship with the Mafia had facilitated their power grab after the Nazis fled from the Isle. Whatever the case, after the liberation, the Mafia was emboldened and began performing daring crimes, such as the large-scale hijacking and looting of Allied warehouses. The war was still raging on, and the Allies could not spare resources to perform a major campaign against the Mafia. As such, they resorted to appeasement. Don Calogero Vizzini became Villalba's mayor and the king of the post-war black market. Don Calo's right-hand man, Giuseppe Genco Russo, became the mayor of Mussomeli. These Mafia members were, amongst many others, securing the Mafia's control over Sicily. As for Lucky Luciano, on January 3rd of 1946, Governor Thomas Dewey reluctantly commuted his sentence, along with 6 other foreign convicts held in US prisons. On February 9th, Luciano was deported to Sicily aboard the freighter Laura Keane. The US government's collaboration with the Mafia would not end with the Second World War. For example, Commander Haffenden was seen playing golf with Frank Costello in March of 1946, and later accusations indicated Costello helped Haffenden earn the position of Commissioner of Marine and Aviation. This key position gave Haffenden jurisdiction over the docks of New York and LaGuardia and Idlewild airports. A later FBI report on March 15th alleged Frank Costello has considerable control in the present administration. Indeed, the Mafia would even attempt to assassinate Fidel Castro prior to the Bay of Pigs invasion, working alongside the CIA. But that is a story for another time. But you can get over 500,000 words of this story now with our sponsor, the Grand Mafia, in which you play as a despairing gang leader fighting to maintain balance in your city and aid its citizens. But you'll also need to fight your rivals and uncover the truth behind a family vendetta. It's a wild ride you'll never forget, so go immerse yourself in Mafia life by playing the Grand Mafia for free via our link in the description and enjoy this legendary mobile game in all its glory. More videos on modern history are on the way, so stay tuned for those by subscribing and pressing the bell button. Please consider liking, commenting and sharing, it helps immensely. Recently, we've started releasing weekly Patreon and YouTube member exclusive content. Consider joining their ranks via the link in the description or button under the video to watch these weekly videos, learn about our schedule, get early access to our videos, access our private Discord, and much more. This is the Kings and Generals channel, and we will catch you on the next one.